From episode 5 is now out, and it brings with it the highly anticipated reunion between Victor and his father Henry.
I didn't know I'd get home. Okay.
However, because this is an episode of From, the show that gets your mind going more than any other,
I'm sorry this happened to you.
you best believe there's so much more to it than that. So grab your talismans and buckle up, because there's some big clues as to how some of these characters connect, and now it's time to break it down.
It's like trying to grab hold of water.
Before we jump in, don't forget to leave a thumbs up on the video if you enjoy it, and make sure to subscribe to the channel if you'd like to catch more of our From coverage. Now, with all that out of the way, let's get into Season 3, Episode 5 of From.
Boyd, there is something out there. Something different. We heard it both times now. Walking around outside the cabins at night. Okay.
Last time out, we saw Tabitha's ambulance make it back into town where, to put it simply, all hell broke loose. And during a rush to get Henry and Tabitha into the safety of Colony House, Boyd was faced with a difficult decision. Should he drive the ambulance away, giving Tabitha the chance to reunite with her family, or did he risk it all and go back for Randall, who at this point was surrounded by them creatures with no way out? He of course chose to leave Randall behind, and let's be real, he never really saw eye to eye with him anyway, but honestly it was a difficult position to be put in, but he made the right choice in my opinion. Meanwhile, Acosta, the new police officer arrival that also came in the ambulance, let's just say didn't take too well to her new reality and ended up fatally shooting Nikki. I guess it's fitting really that Nikki gave Fatima grief over hogging the bathroom because she couldn't keep her food down, to then become the food herself that Fatima could stomach. We saw Fatima go full-on vampire mode, tasting her blood. And who knows at what point she decided that was enough. We also saw both leaders of the community in Boyd and Donna go through two separate breakdowns, which you'd think were more commonplace in this town than they actually are. Anyways, they're both pretty much at the end of their tethers. We know the creatures are out there actively trying to break Boyd rather than just outright kill him, which we'll come on to later. However, when they try and break him, 9 times out of 10 that also ends up affecting the rest of the town. There are no insignificant parts to this show, but in this episode we have a few that were more significant at this moment than others, so that's what we're going to focus on today. Before this episode dropped, I thought they'd be going on the whole locating Jasper thing. But Henry's arrival put it temporarily on hold. Both sides here are pretty nervous on how this is going to play out. We don't know exactly how many years it's been, but Victor was a young boy when he disappeared, and Henry spent every day since then believing they all died, but at the same time, he could never totally be sure. We see him up in Colony House trying on shirts, feeling underdressed for seeing his long-lost son again, and Donna, doing what Donna does best, tells him to go upstairs as that's where they keep the good clothes. Anyways, Victor arrives. He's there to grab some supplies before he shoots off to look for Jasper, and this is where Donna breaks the news to him that his father's upstairs. However, he doesn't react as you'd necessarily expect. Instead, he tries to avoid the situation, believing his dad wouldn't actually want to see him. Not as he is now anyway, as he's no longer the little boy that left with his mum and sister all those years ago. So he storms off and ends up having a walk around with Sarah as she tries to calm him down. Eventually, she does get through to him, telling him that, yeah, although he might not be the little boy his dad remembers anymore, perhaps Henry is also a little worried that he won't be the dad Victor remembers. And I really like what they've done with Sarah here. She's widely perceived as this terrifying monster, and as Victor himself previously said, she was the scariest person in town only a couple of episodes ago, and maybe that's still true. However, slowly but surely, she's winning him around. Now he's confiding in her his personal issues, rather than just the scary town stuff. Anyway, out in the snow, Victor and Henry end up accidentally crossing paths in what was a very touching reunion.
I didn't know I'd get home. Okay.
Usually this show makes me want to throw up, but they've showed perfectly here that there's so much more to it than that. Now, one thing we didn't see happening at this point in the show, when we've become pretty accustomed to characters perishing in a blink of an eye, is actually one surviving, which is what we've had with Randall this time around. Picking up on pretty much where we left off last week, we see him retrieved from the front of the ambulance and brought back into Colony House. It's pretty difficult to see the damage the creatures inflicted on him due to all the blood, but it looks pretty severe. I've seen a lot of questions as to why they've left him alive in that state and didn't completely rip him to pieces, like they do pretty much everyone else. And I think that's actually explained by where they decided to dump him. Right outside the window, pretty much of where Boyd was. For me, this was nothing more than the creatures continuing their sick mission of doing whatever they can to break Boyd. As he's brought in, Randall immediately blames him for what happened.
You fucking left me out there, man.
The creatures know they can rip the people apart inside out until the cows come home, but Boyd's strong, and that's why he's survived as long as he has, and that's why, given the circumstances, the group of people they've got there for the most part are quite tight-knit. So it's gonna take something a little different to tear them apart from within. They want to destabilize the community. Now, I don't actually think Boyd's caught on to what they've tried to do here just yet. Either that, or he didn't want to reveal it to everyone else publicly. He puts it down to the creatures wanting to remind the townspeople that despite how relatively normal things can seem during the day, come nighttime it's a totally different story, and seeing Randall's disfigurements every day will be a harrowing reminder of that. The bottom line of all this, though, is that things have just gotten a whole lot tougher for Boyd. Not only has he got to worry about the creatures at night now, he's also got to be extra cautious around Randall, in case at some point he wants to even the score.
Boyd, you being here is just gonna make things worse.
Now, once Kenny, Christy and Jade returned from their food gathering quest deep in the forest, a little worse for wear as Christy's needing proper treatment due to her bear trap wound, Jade quickly discovers Tabitha's return, but more interestingly, the nature of her return. So immediately, without sparing a second for thought, he sprints all the way over to the Matthews house. Tabitha's at home explaining what's gone on a bit more to Jim and the kids, as Jade comes barging through the door looking for answers of his own.
I need to talk to you.
But he's not the only one. Word about her return has begun to spread around the town, and there's finally a town hall meeting called to get everyone up to speed. Now, a town hall meeting is something fans have been calling for pretty much ever since the show began, for everyone to get together, communicate and share their experiences, as there are some there that are pretty unique and perhaps they can help each other figure things out. However, this particular meeting couldn't have been further away from that, with it instead being solely focused on Tabitha and her journey, which I do get because it's a huge deal, but the people were looking for answers, and beyond what she saw with her own eyes, she wasn't able to give any, which then turned into a bit of a blame game, with people a little annoyed, to say the least, at her not reaching out for help when she was given the opportunity. You've got Ellis, Fatima and Dow all going at her whilst Boyd tries to keep the peace.
We can't just run out there into the forest and hop into the first tree.
Of course, these reactions are based off raw emotion, and when you think about it, she was right in thinking no one would believe her. Back in the real world, they wouldn't. Even Acosta put it down to her being hysterical, and Henry himself only believed her because of his own experiences with Miranda and the fact she was carrying Victor's lunchbox, which went missing with him all those years ago. To be honest, the meeting actually did a far better job at dividing an already strained community than giving them clarity and bringing them together to figure things out. As already mentioned, Ellis, Boyd's own son, and Fatima both turned on him, which just shows how much the heat's being turned up. But also a big one this episode is Dale. Now, let's be honest, how many of us actually like Dale in the first place? But anyways, he's not up for sitting around much longer. He's had enough and he wants to take action, even if that means going alone.
I want to go home.
Once the meeting concludes, Tabitha returns home with Jin, to Jade waiting there with the kids. He's not big on town hall meetings, and to be fair, he's been one of the worst ones in terms of communication. However, he wants to go and see the tree.
Finally.
Wait, what?
To see if he can figure any of it out, which Tabitha agrees to. Ethan's once again told to stay at home. Now, I say once again, not because I'm all for kids wandering into a monster-infested town or anything like that, but because I think it's actually foreshadowing something to come in the future, as moments in this show often do. Like, Victor was once told to stay in the basement where he was safe, only to come out in the morning to find the aftermath of the massacre. From there, he spent a lot of time on his own. I think Ethan's story is going to mirror that of Victor's, in that sometime in the near future, he'll also be told to stay somewhere, to stay safe, and that's the best way to help, only himself to come out the following morning or something like that, to find himself there all alone. Now, Jim informs Jade after he was questioning the nature of the bottles, they took some down, that they aren't in the same positions they were previously when Tabitha entered the bottle tree and teleported to the lighthouse. Jade was pretty annoyed about that, and to be honest,
And you don't think that's important?
I think he's got a good reason to be. I think he's onto something with these bottles and their connection to the lighthouse. You see, once they arrive at the tree, the idea is put out there that the numbers written inside might not be random after all, that they could be significant dates. Now, that idea is actually put to bed, for now at least, when a sequence of numbers appears on one of the notes, which points to a date in the far future.
This one says 2659.
I know a lot of people are saying that this potentially points to the town sitting outside of time and stuff like that, but I actually think these numbers are acting more like coordinates, and that someone worked out previously that certain sequence of numbers, perhaps even in that particular order, consistently transported you to the same location. As with the other trees without bottles, we've seen Boyd ending up where he did, and what we see at the end of the episode with Dale being teleported into the wall of the swimming pool where the motel once stood, that is pretty random, and you really can end up anywhere. Jade's not at this point in thinking thinking right now, but he's definitely on the right track by questioning the importance of the numbers.
Until you understand the pattern.
In an episode where you almost take a step away from the direction the show's been heading in with locating Jasper, as he might be able to help them understand why everything in the town's suddenly changing, and instead focusing on Victor's reunion with his father, there's still so much in this episode to unpack. It's crazy how much has happened so far, and we're only at the halfway mark of the season. The reunion was great, but I feel like the most interesting part of the episode for me has to be the bottle tree. With the right numbers, maybe even in the right positions too, I think you can determine where you'll end up, and the fact this episode also introduced an old camera into the mix, which Julie and Elgin found whilst messing around high, perhaps someone like Jade or Jim could create a tripod so they can send the camera down into the tree first without needing to take any risks themselves as they program it. We know Boyd and some of the others have often said they need to stick together and work as one, but this episode, perhaps more than any other, hints that the idea of working together is the whole point of the town and potentially their only real chance of escaping. Like when Jade tells Tabitha about the symbol he's been seeing, that it's not actually a symbol but rather tree roots, now directly connects what he's experiencing with what Miranda and now Tabitha are, and it wouldn't appear right now that Christopher made it to this point. Let's just hope that Jim hasn't messed this path up for good by moving the bottles around. However, chances are this isn't the only way out, but right now it definitely feels like the closest they've ever been. So do you think the numbers are actually dates, or are you more on the line of thought of them being coordinates or something else entirely? As always, drop your thoughts, theories and wilder speculations down in the comments below. Don't forget to leave a thumbs up on the video if you've enjoyed it, and make sure to subscribe if you'd like to catch more. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.